Thank you for joining us today. Michael is the CEO of Republik Labs. As the CEO, he plays a key role in overseeing the company's strategy, direction, partnership, and growth, especially in the rapidly evolving space of blockchain technology. Before we dive into details, could you please introduce Republik Labs and Mandala Chain to our audience, especially those who may be less familiar with your work? How does your platform operate, and what core problem are you aiming to solve in blockchain and public infrastructure space?
I've been living in Indonesia for the last 7 years. I've been in blockchain since 2017. And in COVID lockdown, we started to try and make some educational content in the Indonesian language because there wasn't any that existed. And so we started creating content. And before you know it, within a very short period of time, it took off. And we had 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. We had a really growing community. By the time COVID lockdown ended, we were able to start meeting together. We've become one of the largest blockchain communities in the Indonesian language. And we've morphed into a research hub. We help other projects that are trying to get involved in the Southeast Asia region. And then the time came where we actually got a tap on the shoulder from a developer house here in Indonesia that had said that the government had asked them to help them to use blockchain. And we thought, well, this is a very interesting client. It's the government of Indonesia, or parts of the government of Indonesia. And so what we really wanted to do is that we wanted to be able to try and create a project where the government would use blockchain, but not in like a centralized way. And so we thought, how can we create a project where the government is the client, the app builder, but it's still a decentralized, permissionless Web3 network? And that's where we looked towards what other ecosystems were out there. And I'm originally from the Ethereum ecosystem, but I've always loved Polkadot's architecture and technology. And we looked at the Polkadot model where there's a relay chain and then these parachains which connect to it. And so that's the model that we used. And we used the Polkadot tech stack where we created the Mandala Chain, which is an L1 that's secured by Polkadot. But we have these side chains or sister chains or application chains which are run by the government, which connect to that Mandala Chain. So Mandala Chain is co-founded by Republik Labs, the Indonesian community, also co-founded by our developer partner Baliola. And we're a blockchain ecosystem that connects government, retail, and enterprise all in one decentralized permissionless network, all sort of secured by the Mandala mainnet.
Okay. Republik Labs has positioned Mandala Chain at the intersection of Web3 and public infrastructure. How have you built trust with government stakeholders in Indonesia, and what lesson can other emerging markets learn from this approach?
Yeah, like any good business, I think if you're trying to just make money, it's probably not going to be something that succeeds. You have to be solving a problem. And so in this part of the world, they have been underserved by poor infrastructure, and there's been some security, like data security issues. And so what we did is we were just providing free research and information. We ended up hosting a boot camp for about 80 politicians here, where we did a 2-day course that Republik Labs wrote the content for. And we just guided these politicians through what was blockchain, how can it help you, what problems does it solve, why is it better than traditional computer systems. And what we did is we upskilled them for free just by building a knowledge base and developed a trust. And then they got curious about, okay, well, how can this particularly help my particular part of the government that I work in? And that's when then questions started to get asked. We were able to provide them with some potential solutions. And that's led to creating some MVP products, which has all led to like a broader ecosystem. So I think people more so are interested in what can you make off of them. And we've come with the mentality that we want to provide solutions to problems. And that's then led to the opportunity that's opened doors.
Thank you. Mandala Chain dual chain design, combining a governance chain and a compliance chain, is quite unique. What was the core rationale behind this model, and how do you see it evolving as adoption scales?
So we wanted to make sure that this still stayed as a decentralized network and that value accrual came back to a decentralized token that was governed by the community. And so obviously when you've got a client that is a government client, what they want is that they want to obviously still be able to control elements of data that they need to control and keep private. We had this model where a private blockchain could be run by a government department, but users could still interact with that private chain by bridging from a public network. And so the Mandala network is a decentralized, permissionless network that will be governed by token holders, but it interacts with, I guess, clones of the Mandala Tech, which are run by government entities. So whatever it needs to stay private can stay private, but citizens can still interact with those services through a decentralized permissionless network.
Okay, with strong traction in Indonesia, what is Republic Labs' strategy for replicating Mandala Chain model in other Southeast Asian countries like Thailand, Malaysia, or Vietnam? How will you adapt to cultural and regulatory difference across the region?
Yeah, this is a great question because obviously every country has got different requirements. And we've already been tested in this regard because we've had to alter our use cases for different departments and different use cases inside the government. We're not one use case, we're several use cases, whether that's banking, whether that's data security, whether it's decentralized identity, whether it's health records. So we've already had to come up with custom solutions for very many different use cases. And so we are very lucky that we've got the opportunity to pilot this in Indonesia. And we would like to be able to use that as a demonstration to other regional or other sovereign nations that this can be customized to whatever their particular use cases are. We already have some neighbors of Indonesia who have asked us to duplicate this. So we're growing to just be more than just Indonesia. And we've got several other countries that we're talking to at the moment. And I think the main thing is that emerging markets and markets that are growing are probably more likely to trial new technologies. Places like, Northeast Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Europe, the US are probably unlikely to want to experiment because they're already the powerhouses of the world. But emerging markets are more willing to try emerging technologies. And so that's why Southeast Asia has been a primary focus to start with.
Thank you. Mandala Chain is targeting millions of new wallets tied to real-world use case. How is Republic Labs designed the token economy to ensure both utility and long-term value creation for the ecosystems?
Yes, so all of the use cases that are involved inside the Mandala ecosystem all have some sort of value accrual back to the native token, which is KPG. That's the ticker of our token. So whether it's using a silo chain or a sister chain that is using our token for security, or whether it's they're using it as collateral or transaction fees or staking or some sort of tip mechanism, every single application that's involved in our ecosystem all has a particular different use case that drives value back to the token. So somebody can hold our token and they get exposure to a wide variety of different use cases and value accruals. And this is what we were trying to do. So it wasn't just transaction fees, because I think transaction fees and gas payments in blockchains are going to trend towards zero long term anyway. Most, I think, blockchains in the future will be gasless, and they might even be prepaid by applications. And so there needs to be different security models and different tokenomic models to actually drive value back to a token. And so a lot of these chains which connect to our ecosystem are going to have to lock up a large amount of KPG, our native token, to be part of our network to show that there's a security layer. They may be using it as collateral. They may be using it to bond to make sure that they can prove that they're part of our ecosystem. Or it might be that somebody's using it as a fee payment model to be able to generate some sort of proof on our main chain. So everything ties back to the token ultimately.
Okay. How does Republic Labs balance the idea of centralization with the need for close collaboration with government and enterprise? Do you envision Mandala Chain transition to DAO or community governance model over time?
Yes, we plan on being a DAO from the outset. This will be governed by the token. There's a collective treasury of nearly 20% of the token supply that is controlled only by token holders. And so all governance decisions will be made by token holders. And so what happens is the applications, being the government departments or the institutions, they will have some sort of autonomy over their application. But while they live inside the network is a decentralized autonomous organization governed by the community and fully decentralized. So this is how we've made the balance and act, is that the application might have some sort of restrictions or requirements, but the network itself and the ecosystem is fully decentralized and controlled by token holders.
Thank you. Many blockchain projects struggle to move beyond prototypes. How has Republic Labs ensured that Mandala Chain integrations, whether in digital identity, healthcare, or banking, move beyond pilots into sustained adoption?
Yeah, so if you look at this in reverse, most use cases, they start out with an idea, they start out with a piece of technology, then they go and try and find use cases, then they go and try and find users. And they do lots of promotion and marketing to try and find users. In 2025, I don't think the world needs more blockchains for no reason. We already have a lot of really great blockchains. You could just go build it on Ethereum. There's no need. What makes us different is that we already had users and a use case before we decided to build the technology. So the reason why we decided to create this project is because we had a use case and we already had a really big community. And so then we thought, well, we may as well service this need with our own technology rather than going to somewhere else. So we're the opposite of like a normal startup where we're trying to scale and find new users and use cases. We already have them. That's why we started the project in the first place. So we're a little bit different in that regard. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been on my to-do list to go and create a new blockchain. I just would have used Ethereum or Polkadot or Solana or whatever it might have been. But because we had the demand and we had users already, then yes, we decided to build the chain.
Okay, what role do local developer, startups, and public institutions play in building the Mandala Chain ecosystem? How are you empowering partners to create value on top of your infrastructures?
Yeah, if you think of blockchain like a real world business, the best equivalent that I could say would be like a shopping mall. Now, everybody has been to a shopping mall before. We all love to go shopping at the mall. And most malls, they have one major store that's the anchor store, the anchor tenant. Now, that might be a movie cinema or a department store or a supermarket, but there's one major store in every mall. And then you get these little stores that open up around it. But the only reason those little stores come to the mall is because of the main customers that come because of the anchor tenant. Blockchains are the same. The only way that a blockchain gets other people to come and build on their chain is if there's users already. And so if you think about our chain like a shopping mall, our main tenant is a government. And so there's already going to be a whole bunch of users on our chain because there's a government there and people need to interact with that government. And so if you're an app builder and you're wanting to create your application somewhere, you would want to build it in a place where there's already a lot of users, and we will have users. And so that's why we've been encouraging people in the region to come and deploy their application on our chain, because they'll get exposure to all of the traffic that comes with people interacting with their government already.
Thank you. Many of Mandala Chain's applications, such as medical data or government service, require interoperability with Web2 systems. How do you design your blockchain to bridge the gap, especially in low infrastructure regions?
A lot of the time, applications don't need to be completely on-chain. Sometimes people like to think about blockchain solutions and they try and force blockchain onto an application that doesn't need it. And so the approach that we've taken is that things that don't need to be on-chain will still stay off-chain. So sometimes like a medical record, for example, doesn't need to be completely on-chain, but the ownership of that data can be on-chain. So it might just be that to access that off-chain data, you need to sign an on-chain transaction. And so I think the world isn't a world where we force everything onto a blockchain. It's a combination, it's a hybrid of using traditional systems, but then using blockchain to enhance them when needed. Sometimes I see in our Web3 industry, people try and force things onto chain when it doesn't need to be on chain.
Thank you so much for your insight. It's been a pleasure learning about Republik Labs and Mandala Chain's innovative approach to driving Web3 adoption in emerging market. We look forward to following your progress.